Hello friend, welcome back to my channel. Today we're focusing on the put method in the context of Jakarta EE REST services. We will explore how to implement idempotent updates, how to map path parameters and ensure that your services can be easily tested. Let's jump in. As always, we're starting with an empty project and we're going to be filling in the blanks as we progress. I'm writing REST application and I'm extending from the Jakarta RX application. Now moving to our Maven POM XML file, I'm specifying the compiler release version. I may want to be using Java version 25. Now my dependency, I do need the Jakarta API dependency inside, and I'll also will need some build dependency to be able to compile and to package my application. And the first plugin I'm going to be needing is the Maven compiler plugin and also the Maven WAR file plugin. Now that everything's set and done, we can go ahead and complete our application. Now I am importing the Jakarta EE application. I'm adding the application path, which is going to be API as the entry point, and now I need the resource. Now let's call it user resource. Once I've had my user resource set up, I need to create a get all user service call. So I've already set up everything beforehand so that we can get straight into business. So I am creating my user records that I do need for my user service and my user resources. So my user has an ID, a name, and an email. Now everything's set and done. My resource is there. Now let's test our setup. I have Glassfish running. I'm adding the WAR file into Glassfish for deployment, and let's see how long it takes to deploy. Localhost 8080 request response API users. Fine, so everything's working. Now I have a simple application setup, and I do have some users in my in-memory database that I can query from the console. Now let's see how long it takes to do a hot code deploy. It takes 6 seconds, which is a little bit slow. Usually it's less than 1 second. I'm not sure what's going on my machine right now. It might be my antivirus software, but nevertheless it's still fast, right? This is just to show you how productive it is when working with Glassfish and Jakarta EE, which you should always do. Now let's get back into the business. We are trying to create a put, which means we want to update a user in our database. What I need is an ID to be able to update a specific user, and I need the user DTO. These are going to be the data for the update. Now I do have my put request. Now I specify the path, and which is users as the root, and then my path parameter is the ID. Once I have my path parameters set, now I need to update the user into the user service. This happens when I do updated user is equal to user service dot update user. Since the method is not yet implemented, this is what we are going to do next. Once I get my user updated, I may want to be returning the updated user back to the caller. So what I'm going to do is to respond with an OK, and then with my entity that I'm giving back to the caller. Now I create my update user method in my user service. What we may want to do here is to check whether or not the DTO has an ID. If not, we may want to create a new user and insert it into the database. Mind you, this is an update user method, so what we are doing is not really the right way to do it, but we're going to fix it later. For now, let's say there is no user ID in the data transfer object, and we create a user and we insert the user into the database. And once the user is into the database, now we can return that user back to the caller. So this is what I'm doing here. I'm just returning the created user. Return created user. All right, so I have my user created, and now I can test my application. Now curl -x put, and then minus JSON. Now let's copy some JSON data, copy and paste, then localhost port 8080 / request response / API / users. Yeah, let's pipe the JSON into a test file first, because it the Windows console is complaining about some escaping. So yeah, I'm calling the user JSON file in which the body of my application of my call is saved. I'm still getting an error here. 403, the path seems to be wrong. Oh yeah, it's api.user./1. all right, so we are sending the payload to the server, but something is still missing. So if there is an ID, nothing's going to happen, and when I remove the ID, a new user is created. This may not necessarily be what we want, so we are going to fix it. Now let's check all the records that we have in the database, and you see we only have 3 records in the database. This is because we are not saving the user that we are creating. Now let's fix that. Let's call put again. You create a new user. Now let's call curl to get all users. Exactly. So now that user is being saved in the database and is being returned with all the users. All right, so the first part is fine. Let's create some tests. I'm creating a genuine test case. I'm trying to update user, and I do not want Eclipse to attach the JUnit library because we are going to do it ourselves. Why? Because it's easy, and at the same time you will be learning how to work with Jakarta EE with confidence, right? So I do need the JUnit Jupyter version 5, which is JUnit 5. Yeah, that one's good. So enter. Fine. Now I need some more dependencies for the Arquillian test container. The first thing I would be using is the Arquillian connector for JUnit. So I need Arquillian JUnit container, JUnit 5, and then I need the Arquillian connector for the server. I'm using Glassfish, and I do need the Glassfish server as well. So I connect Arquillian to the JUnit container, and I connect Arquillian to the Glassfish container. So I need Arquillian Glassfish node embedded all. I need Glassfish embedded all. I don't know why it's not. Oh, it's not Arquillian, it's Glassfish embedded that I'm looking for. All right, so Glassfish embedded all. So you see 3 more dependencies. So let's change the version to be 8.0.0. Fine. So everything's compiling. Now let's see whether or not we are able to start the test. So I always do this to be able to be able to see that my setup is working fine. Now that my setup is correct, now annotation extend with Arquillian extension dot class. This is going to be an Arquillian test, and I do need a deployment, so public static web archive create deployment, and I return, let's import first, so return, so this is a deployment, I need the annotation, return shrink wrap dot shrink wrap dot create exactly web archive dot class. Then I will be adding all my classes that I need to have in my web archive. So I need the REST application class, I need the user resource class, I need the user service class, and I also need the user class. All right, so yeah, usually you can also add all packages in one go. Now that I have my web archive, I need to know the URL where my web server will be running, and this is an Arquillian resource, so I'm going to be calling it server URL, and I annotate with Arquillian resource annotation. Fine, now let's see whether I'm able to start my container. So let's add an assert not null server URL, and then let's start our test. Starting, we expect it to be green because the server URL, oh, it's red. What's going on? Okay, let's see, it's Java 9 issue modularity. It's complaining about some module not being accessible. Let's look closely. So module Java naming is not accessible or does not open JAX.naming.spi. So let's fix that. It's simple. So we add a new VM parameter -- add opens java.base, the Java naming / javax.naming.spi is equal all on name. All right, now let's run test again so that Java is happy. Starting the container. Okay, another error. Java, or complaining about Java base this time. All right, so no problem. Let's fix that. Let's add another line. Add open java.base / it's java base / java.lang is equal to all unnamed. Okay, apply, run. Let's see what happens. Hopefully this time it's going to be green, which is exactly what we expect. Now let's write some tests. First of all, we need a client, right? And the good thing about working with Arquillian and Glassfish is that you are writing a real test. We are not mocking anything. So it's basically the same thing that's going to happen in production. So client is equal to client builder dot new client. Now that I have a client, I can build my request. Now response, or let's create a user DTO first. We are going to be sending a user with an ID just to test, and then a name. Let's call it John Test, and an email John2 at Jakarta at Arquillian. Let's say Arquillian.test. I have my user created. It's long. Now I can put the user by calling response is equal to client dot target, and server URL to string to external form, and then we add the path, which is api.user, and also the ID of the user that we are trying to update. What we are doing is not exactly correct, but I just want you to understand the mechanic behind this. So we are calling the path with ID equal 1. Now we are requesting with a content type of application JSON, and we are sending an entity, which is a put. We are putting the entity user DTO. Let's fix the import. So entity user DTO, and this is the application JSON media type. All right, once we get that, now we have a response. No, there's no get here, so it's fine. Put, and then there's a response. Now what we can check is that the result that's contained in the response is what we are expecting. So we are expecting basically the same user that we have sent to the server, because it's a put, and we are basically updating or creating a new user. So our set equal user DTO is equal to the created user. Now let's run test and see what's happened. Now the server started, and it should be okay. Both are equals. That's interesting. So I've sent user with ID 1, and so you see now we are saving that user in the database. Let's set a breakpoint to see exactly what's happening. So I'm trying to update user with ID number 1. So now there's a bug here. You see, we are not even considering the ID that's in the path parameter, and this is something that we need to fix. But if we follow along, we have our ID here in the user DTO, and that user is saved in the database, and it's sent back as a result to the caller, which is why the text is green. The text is green, but the code is wrong. Now let's send a DTO with no ID to see what's gonna happen. So let's write null. So the things that's gonna happen is that it's going to be creating a new user with a new ID, right? And the text is going to be failing, and which is correct. It should fail. Mind you, we are implementing a put method, and a put is idempotent. So if I send the same query 10 times, I should get the same result every time. And as you can see, our implementation is broken, and this is something we need to fix. So we're returning a user with an ID back to the client, even though we have sent a user with no ID, and our implementation is just wrong. And let's fix that. Now let's complete the test. Of course, the test is going to be failing because the user that we've sent is different from the user that we are receiving from the client, right? Now let's get the test failing. Let's look at the return. We expect a user which is null. We have an ID of null, and we receive a user with an ID of 4. So first thing we need to do is to check that the parameter in the path is equal to the user ID in the DTO. If it's not equal, then we return a bad request back to the client, because we are trying to update a user that's already in the database. Like I said, put is idempotent, right? It's always going to return the same result given the same input. And we have seen that if we were sending a DTO with an empty ID, we were returning a different result each time. So now we're returning a bad request when the path ID is different from the ID in the user DTO. So ID in path does not match the user ID, and build. All right. Now, if it's not the case, so obviously, so now let's fix the test. The string that's going to come back is going to be an error response, and it should be the text that we've just written in the results. Yes. So I'm copy that, going back to the test, and then you can run our test again and see what happens. Now it should actually be successful. As you can see, okay, let's fix the, yeah, it's a little bit annoying here because Eclipse doesn't allow me to set a template for all my tests. Okay, no problem. Let's run again. And it should be fine. All right. Now, when the ID is equal to the one given in the DTO, now we update the user with that ID. What we want to do is to check whether or not the ID is available in the database. So if the database contains that ID or doesn't contain the ID, we return null. All right. If it does, what we do is we just copy all the values from the DTO, and we create, I want to say that we create a new user, but actually we are just replacing the user at that ID with the new value that are coming in. I may just as well could just save the incoming DTO, but usually the DTO is different from the original user, original object. So it's just to show you the mechanic behind the scene. Now let's add a new attribute just to make sure that we are getting a new object when we are updating our user. Now I'm setting a new attribute which is going to be initialized every time a new object is being created, and that attribute is called last modify, which I initialize with the current time every time I create a new user. You don't have to do this, and yes, just to show you how you can be working with attributes and multiple parameter and multiple constructor while using a record object. Now I'm testing that updating a user is successful. What I need is to be sending a user with an ID which is equal to the path ID. For instance, here the ID is 1 and the path is user/1, which means that I'm going to be returning, let's use a JSON object this time. The reason why I'm not using the user record is because I have multiple constructor, and I don't want to confuse you right now, but we're going to see in the next video how to construct a user object when you have multiple constructor. So now I'm just returning a JSON object, and I'm going to be checking all the different attributes from the response that has been returned from the server. And as you can see, we didn't need no JAX-RS or no other JSON library. With only a single dependency, you are able to do everything that you would usually need. Hundreds and hundreds lines of oh, there's an error here. Oh yeah, it's not able to deserialize. Oh yeah, it's true. Alright, so I'm specifying the constructor, and oh yeah, so folks, that's it. Takeaway is always use Jakarta EE, always use Glassfish or Payara, and subscribe to my channel. Thank you.